Good morning. This panel is about making of our executive productions, LinkedIn Company Connect. This is a bi-weekly show that we do with the executive leadership, and this is the team that makes it happen. And there's a lot that goes into scoping it, getting all of the upfront information and so forth, and it takes a team to do this. And as you'll hear from some of the participants, there's a lot of high expectations given that it's the executive leadership team, and how we are able to manage expectations and so forth are all things that will be covered at various levels from the team. And I'm going to first start by introducing. Maybe you guys want to, Karen, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Ordaz. I'm a senior live producer on the LinkedIn Media Productions team. And as Gary said, I am part of the team that brings our Company Connect to all of our offices, to all of our employees around the world every 2 weeks. So it is a lot of work, but really excited to share with you all how we do it. And with that, I will hand it over to Michael.
Hey, good morning. I'm Michael Serafin, and I am the show caller for our Company Connect that we do every 2 weeks. I work with CH Reynolds for LinkedIn as a senior supplier manager, as well as many different tasks, including show caller. And I will hand it over to Jesus.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Jesus Cruz, and I am the technical director for Company Connect, but also any other event, meeting, or fireside chats that we have here. I'm also with CH Reynolds, and I think I've been here about 5 years as a technical director, live switcher. Pass it on to Joshua.
I'm Joshua Leslie. I'm a media systems engineer. I support operations team and our producing team. Help build the workflows, test the equipment, and I also support the equipment.
Yeah, so our infrastructure is, we have 5 facilities, including one in EMEA, 4 in the Bay Area, 3 in the Bay Area, 1 in New York, and 1 in Bangalore. And all of these facilities are tied full-time together and allow us to interop between them. Often we have done productions, like as an example, New York does not have a control room. So productions that happen in the New York studio would be backhauled here likely, although we can do other control rooms. And all of the shows are produced out of one of these control rooms on the West Coast. When we talk about how we're doing road shows and taking that on, there was an event that had happened. There was an employee from another office who came up, sweet woman, and asked, "Hey, when are you coming to Omaha?" And I think we all were like, "Oh, wow, okay, how's that going to work?" And we kind of went to work, not only for Omaha, but understanding that that's not going to be the only place. So we had to really start thinking about how are we going to be able to get into other offices and maintain the same look and feel for any of the shows, so regardless of where the end point is. And so we always like to highlight, we have our fly pack over there, which is a pretty compact fly pack system that will uplink into any of our offices. Essentially, to get a little granular, we get an address space and uplinks. We configure our network switch, and we go into the office, patch that in. Once we have valid network, we use transmission equipment that leverages a 10 gig path from those locations back to our main control room. It includes intercom systems, so it's all tied in, so the team's intercom in our control room is the same out in the venue. And what else? We're one of the keys is we coordinate with our unified communications team, who does the builds for all of these little events, smaller event spaces, not broadcast ready, training rooms and rooms like that, to understand what their technology is. We have very common tech in our world. And what that enables us to do with our fly pack is tie into their Dante network. so that we can pick off microphones and so forth, and we can also feed back into the audio system to feed the speakers. So we don't have to bring in and rent a lot of that equipment. We try our best to leverage technology that's currently in the venue. And the other side of it, all of those systems are set up with Crestron DMs. And that's how they feed all the various displays in there. And we just find the magic connection, pull it, and stuff. We have SDI to HDMI conversion there, patch it in, we hit all the screens. So it's a really slick, smooth integration into these rooms. Of course, we do use outside vendors for things like cameras and all of that, but that's kind of the idea behind Rack Daddy. We affectionately call him Rack Daddy. But where it really starts is pre-production. So we wanted to cover like 3 areas of how we go about this, and then it's pre-production, rehearsals, and show day. So to start, I was going to pass it on to Karen from the producer's perspective, since it really starts with her, how she goes about the business.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, so obviously, as Gary said, being able to do this every 2 weeks, and then also being able to take it on the road is a lot of work. And obviously, we've been doing this Company Connect. We do it every 2 weeks, and we have a very strong relationship with our comms partners, with our internal comms, our internal communications team that works directly with Ryan. So I think that is something that is so important to our LMP team, is having that strong relationship and working in lockstep with our comms team, so that we know ahead of time if we are taking this on the road, any kind of changes or anything that's coming up with the Company Connect, we are the first to know, and we work very, very closely with our comms team. And then the way that we work with the team that helps in setting us up for success for this show every 2 weeks, and then when we take it on the road, is a few things that are super important to us. Documentation is so important. We have a live document that we update for every 2 weeks. It is the same document that our team, our LinkedIn media productions team, and our comms team is working out of. It is just one doc that we all go in and work off of. Also, the run of show for this Company Connect doesn't change much. We have a very consistent flow of what this event is going to be. So whether we do it out of our Together space where you are all at right now, or whether we take it to New York, it is a very similar run of show. There are changes that we have within it, but for the most part, it stays consistent with the intro from our CEO to our 3 new hire presentations that we do. We always know we're going to have a keynote presentation, so we are set up to be able to do that every 2 weeks. Another big thing that is super important is weekly meetings. We have meetings with our comms team every week, and that also, as we get closer to our to the show date, is we're also incorporating our show caller, our technical director, Jesus, Serafin, Michael, we call him Serafin, Michael joining us on these calls with our comms team, so that we're all together, we're all hearing the same information from our comms team and making sure that we're all set up for success. So again, documentation is super, super important, working with our comms team. Our weekly meetings, our communication system with them is super important. And we're always looking for ways to just streamline our production approach. For example, we have the same stage setup, whether we do it out of Together, whether we do it out of the New York office, we're always setting things up exactly the same. So that includes our downstage monitors or our confidence monitors. It is the same setup. If you are a speaker out of our Together office, you're going to have the same setup if you're presenting in our New York office. This all just helps for us to be able to focus more on how we're going to execute and up level versus just trying to figure out how we're going to do this from a different office. So I think for us, it is super, super important to always streamline every part of the production as we're in that pre-production phase. I think another call out for this is rehearsal, specifically with our speakers. This is something that we push directly with our communications team, is that anyone that is going to be participating in our Company Connect shows, is we're making sure that they're actually showing up to the place that they're going to present from, walking through everything, so that we can get ahead of any kind of technical issue or any issue that might come up. We're we really lean in on making sure that those rehearsals are happening with the speakers on site, which obviously helps also our show caller, our technical director, and making sure that they know exactly what the show is going to be. Each office, when we take this show on the road, each office does come with its own intricacies. So apart from being able to take our rack, or as they call it, Rack Daddy, they've named it. Apart from being able to take that into our other offices, we work very, very closely with the teams on site, with the comms team in that specific office, plus our workplace team, to make sure that we are set up to be able to, again, be able to replicate the same show that we do in Together every 2 weeks, being able to take that and have that same setup on site at whatever office we do Company Connect from. So I think those are the big takeaways from us as we think about the pre-production for Company Connect is documentation, the importance of having very clear, open communication between us, as producers, with the communications team, and trust. I think over the years, we have worked very hard in making sure that our communications team has trust in us and sees us as production experts, so that when they do have a new idea that comes up, they come to us, we can talk about it. I, as a producer, will then go to Joshua, Gary, and Michael and Jesus and say, like, hey, this is what they want to do. Can we or can we not do this? And we always find ways to be able to do what the comms team is planning on doing for the next Company Connect. But I think a lot of it comes down to the trust that the comms team has with us. And as a producer, the trust that I have on my engineering team to be able to take all the things that we've gathered from the pre-production and being able to execute once we get on site. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Gary.
All right. Yes, so that's a lot of upfront work that happens, and now we actually have to figure out how we're gonna do it. So let's talk about how we're gonna do it.
So Karen mentioned documentation, and she's not wrong at all. So it's really important. So what I'll do is I'll gather all of her information that she gives me, and what I'll do is I'll start my own documentation. And what I'll do first is create a visual diagram of every source hitting every endpoint, all the way from camera to the switcher. And between that is going to be an encoder, a decoder, and if it's a microphone, hey, we have to embed this, so we might have to have an embedder. So I'll document all of that, so that, for one, it's a good reference, it's a good visual key, and we can repeat it again if we need to, if we're in the same office 6 months or a year down the road. And while I'm doing that, I'm also creating router tables. So every source, every destination, it's going to be on a router table, so Jesus can take a look at it. Hey, where's my camera 1 coming in on? Things like that. And then our A1, hey, where's my microphone 1, and so on. And then while I'm doing that, I'm also creating a salvo. So during rehearsals, I want to be able to fire one button, one salvo, and it has, I think, up to 100 routes all in one salvo, and it just does it with a button push, and then that way I can do some testing up before Jesus and Michael get in, and so that way I know if there's any roadblocks or anything like that, I can address those before they get in, so we're not delayed for production and also for our executive team. So if our executive team is here at 10 a.m., we've got to be ready and show ready for rehearsal at 10 a.m. So I'll get in early, fire off the salvo, and then if there's any roadblocks, address it before Jesus and Michael. So that's the documentation part, and I'll hand it off to Jesus and Michael to talk about workflow.
Yeah, so as a technical director, I'll work with Joshua's router tables, and then I'm able to button map what these sources are on my switcher. So everything from camera sources, content machines, PowerPoint, Zoom, video conferencing calls, live demos. I'm able to button map the way it's easier for me to switch throughout the show. And as I'm switching for this, like a Company Connect, I'm not only switching for the stream, which gets a live program of everything I'm switching, but I'm also switching for the in-room experience, like for these walls. And that's, what's that?
Globally.
Yeah, globally. Yeah, globally. And also our video conferencings, I'm also switching for them to, make sure that they're seeing what they're seeing. Basically, my main goal is to make sure the presenters don't see themselves, that they're seeing the right content, that they're seeing, we have a mixed video effect called 80-20, which means the the screen is divided and 80% of the screen is their content, like a PowerPoint, 20% is them speaking. And then, so I will make sure that that's going out to program, but if they're in room, they're looking at their content or in their confidence monitor, so they're not seeing themselves. So yeah, it's pretty much cutting like 3 different shows for like something like Company Connect, and then Michael will direct me of what's coming up, and maybe he can speak a little bit more about that.
Sure. So a lot of times when you'll be at a corporate event like this, it will be one guy doing it, like Jesus said, for the stream, another person doing it for the room, and then some of you might be thinking, well, why isn't he just calling it? Well, when you're cutting 3 shows at once, it's pretty hard to be looking up and moving cameras and doing all that too. So my job is simple compared to what these guys are doing. I come in and kind of just call the show, but it's an interesting experience here at LinkedIn because obviously we're trying to give the white glove experience to not just the CEO, but our partners as well. Karen deals with this all day long, and now our producer Katie, we just did a huge event outside on the lawn this last week, which was amazing, and it was a little different because we actually did have a different team calling just for, we had a tent out there, so that was the first time we'd done that for our team. But with Company Connect, a lot of the times what I'm doing is strictly kind of keeping things on track for the crew. We've got, depending on the day, and we've got up to maybe 12 crew at one time. I think it was up to 19 when I started here doing something like this, including bringing in some people from we brought in freelancers, we had our own team, and then we were also bringing in people from our end user support team to help with stream and VC rooms, things like that, because we're taking so many different fees. And I think it's important to realize when we're bringing in all this content, it's not just video. We're bringing in things from VC. We're backhauling, as you said. It just depends on whatever source. Sometimes we're using Zoom or Teams. It just depends on what we need to do. And that's kind of the interesting thing about how we put this together, because when people come and watch us sometimes from other companies, they're like, how are you guys doing this, right? And it's so many different sources that we make work. And luckily for me, I have this guy sitting next to me, like I said, because my job's easy. But some of the interesting things that we do are also challenging, especially when it comes to being on site. As we mentioned recently, we did something out of Omaha. We had a crew come in that was handling cameras, A1 on site, things like that. It was Omaha. It was different. I wasn't getting crew that I had worked with. I'd never met them. I'd never seen them. So there could be things, the way they do things in Omaha versus the way we do things here, but also it ended up being a very interesting couple of days because some of these camera people had not been corporate. They didn't even know what 80-20 was. So trying to explain and teach them as we're going through something like a rehearsal and trying to guide someone that you've never met, that's never done it before, how to do an 80-20 when they're seeing it on their return, if they have return, or trying to explain to them how they need to back focus their cameras. We don't always pick the crew, right? Depending on what's going on. So it's an interesting experiment and an interesting day when you're trying to do your job and make it through 8 to 10 hour rehearsal day while trying to teach someone how to do their job or guide them. And that's kind of what I do, is a lot of shepherding. With our team, honestly, it's the most amazing team I've ever worked with. And even if we've got less people, we've got guys doing on a rehearsal day 3 or 4 jobs in there, and we make things happen. So it's been a lot of fun. We give the white glove treatment. We have people like Karen who not only deal with our partners but also work as our buffers, because there are times where we can't have partners coming in and hitting us directly. We need this, and this. So we've got our producers who are also dealing with that. Same with Joshua. We've got someone like Joshua or Gary or even Tim when Tim was here, helping us to handle things that have to be done right now. And you're not going to get an excuse. You're not going to get to say, sorry, we couldn't figure that out. We're not going to get to, even though it's always the same, when it comes to the format, how we get there is not always the same. So that's the constant challenge.
Yeah, and along with, if you're cutting 3 shows, there's 3 audio mixes and a variety of mix minus that have to go to various destinations. So the A1 has a lot to do in that as well. It's one of the benefits that we've seen out of fully, we go down to the Dante channel on everything so that we know how all of those routes, and the idea behind the salvos is really scale. I mean, we are looking at ramping to the point where we could be doing multiple productions out of a single control room within a day. So we need to be able to switch between setups and all of that really quickly. And it could be that this control room for show 1 is pointed to San Francisco, and for show 2 it's pointing to New York. So it's really important that we've put a lot of time and effort into, how do we keep the control room the same and let everything happen differently on the outside, but by the time it gets here, it all lays out the same, so that the team has, I don't know, should I say muscle memory? Is that the right term, right? Consistency and how all of that works. What would you say are some of the, I'm going to ask Joshua to start, challenges, like with VC rooms and watch rooms? One of those groups, they don't necessarily watch on the stream. They'll watch through video conferencing. So we have specific rooms that log in. And
Yeah, so we've got multiple rooms that log in. We're making the transition to Teams right now. So we've got a codec that does Zoom. We've got an MTR that does Teams. And so just making sure we get the right feed to the right destination is really important. So that's where I'll work with Karen and say, hey, which rooms are we dialing in? Which rooms is a Zoom room? Which one room is a Teams room? And so what we'll do is we'll just make sure that, hey, these people are going to be doing Zoom, so we'll just make sure that it's just going to be a watch party, so we'll just make sure program gets there. But if it's a Teams room and they want to participate, then we have to make sure that, hey, it's not just program, it's going to be an aux from Jesus, and then it's going to get a different mix minus because they're part of the participation. So we'll have to work with them and figure out what aux is available, and we'll have to make sure the route is there, and then we'll have to make sure that someone's in either that room or a Teams room around us, so we can make sure we can do a test, someone's on stage, and make sure someone's on the room and we can communicate. So I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, so one of the challenges was that what Gary was saying, the muscle memory of what everyone needs to see. So I do this through macros on the switcher. So for example, I record a macro that says, when there's a speaker here in Mountain View, they're going to have their content on the walls, but if they're tossing anywhere else, any backhaul location like Dublin or Omaha, now I have a macro that puts the speaker on their walls for the toss so they can see each other. So the speaker here is seeing the speaker in Dublin and vice versa. And then once I take the speaker to program in Dublin, now they're getting content in the backhaul, and then in room they're seeing the person speaking. And if they have any content in Dublin, then I'll bring in that 80-20 mixed effect that I was talking about. So that was the most challenging thing for me at first, is to remember what everyone else needs to see. But I think I got it down pretty good now. You want to speak to that?
I would definitely agree. You have it down good. One of the Yeah, I'll put that in your review. But one of the some interesting challenges that I kind of mentioned earlier is, of course, having a buffer, because there's so many changes. Like I said, there's always kind of the same idea, but things change literally during the show sometimes up to the last minute of the show, especially with content, a lot of times with slides, and trying to convey to partners, to comms, to people that don't do what we do, who are, again, used to that white glove and used to getting it right now, right? So it can be a challenge sometimes when we're trying to do 50 things and someone comes in and says, hey, we need to change this right now. So that's the constant of trying to keep things this instead of this, right? And all over the place. And conveying that with our crew who do an amazing job. And then there's other odd things. Like I said, even with maybe working with a different crew, we're getting ready to do something in the APAC region later in the fall. And we've already realized that there are some language barriers that we didn't expect just trying to convey information for what we're doing with Cruz in the APAC region. A great example was me saying to somebody, you need to reach out to the partner and you need to do this and you need to ask them this. And then come to find out I'm using slang. I didn't realize I was using slang. Seemed so simple, reach out. They didn't know what reach out was. So little things that you don't always think about can become a big challenge when they don't reach out. And then the next time you ask again, and before you know it, it's been a week and a half and nobody's reached out because they don't know what reach out is. So little things like that are also barriers that and challenges that we're dealing with going different places.
Karen, do you have something to add?
I think the biggest, and Michael touched on it, but it is just keeping up with all of the constant changes. Like we said, I mean, the overall flow of the show doesn't really change, but we do have last minute changes on speakers. And it could be where a speaker was originally going to be in Mountain View, but now they're in New York. And so now we need to make sure that New York is all set up, that we have it all ready for this speaker to now present from New York. So I think the biggest challenge with this is keeping up with all of the last minute changes. Like we could be asking for the final deck to be done on the day of the show at 7 a.m. for us to have it ready, locked and loaded. It could be 15 minutes before we're ready to start. And, you know, someone's coming in and making changes to the deck. As broadcast professionals, we know this is always causes a lot of stress, but this is something that we deal with every 2 weeks. And it's something that we just kind of have to learn to work with. And again, it goes back to talking to the comms team as to why we need these things ahead of time, why these last minute changes come with some challenges. But I think it is the biggest thing. The biggest challenge is the constant changes. And also another thing that we're working through is how do we up level this experience for our employees? So we're doing this show every 2 weeks, and we know it comes with a lot of changes and challenges, but also in the back of our mind as producers and as our as a production team is, okay, so how do we continue up leveling and how do we take this to the next level is another challenge that I know that our team right now is working through is how do we continue to surprise and delight our employees with this show that they're used to watching every 2 weeks. So those are things that we're working through right now as well.
Yeah, our executive loves engagement. That's why on the VC side, we have 8 to 11 potential rooms that are joined on a call, and we have an op that manages that, so that the person asking a question or somebody from a particular office that is wanting to ask a question is able to do that. We're able to switch them full screen before Jesus takes it live, and there's just that real-time communication and dynamic that goes around it. It's pretty big when we start thinking about how many offices are actually involved. I mean, in the main part of the program, I think Karen talked about that, where there's a big part of this particular event, Company Connect, where if you're introducing new hires, something that's not on the LinkedIn profile and a special talent. So now it's like, okay, I don't know, somebody's going to do a soccer ball trick or something. You know, how is that going to work in the room, and how are you going to get camera working properly? I mean,
Or a DJ. It's always a DJ.
It's always the DJ. Everybody loves that, but they're little curveballs that come in. But we try to just kind of make the systems super flexible so that we can, these softballs or hard balls, probably hard balls, right? That get thrown at us, we're able to adjust and to make it happen. We don't want to say no, or maybe we do want to say no, but we then again don't want to say no. We want to get the comms team what they want. So it's a team effort. LMP, Karen and her entire team, and operations and engineering, we've become a pretty close team and work really well together. It's been a great dynamic. So I don't know if there's a little time, if anybody had any kind of questions about our workflow or what we talked about, at any aspect of it. I see Pete walking up. No, running up.
I see a hand, so I'm bringing the mic to you.
Thanks for sharing. If there was one thing you could have that you don't have today, besides more time and money, what would that be?
With respect to what? Tech? Talent?
Tech mainly. Infrastructure.
I think what we're lacking right now is a global orchestration layer. So to be able to get two sites to operate together, we can touch any of our tech anywhere in the world. But what it means now is if we're doing something from Dublin, we have to log into the Dublin system to make certain routes and all of that. And we have tooling there that allows us to do everything except layer one. Our vision, and something that we're working on for this fiscal year, which just began, is this orchestration layer that will be able to talk to both of our broadcast controllers in two locations, so that instead of having to log into one facility to say route camera to Nimbra, and then on the other side Nimbra to switcher, is camera to switcher, and have as much of that, not only have that route take, but also to be able to automate it. That is another level. We have a lot of tools that the LMP uses in terms of all of the pre-production work, and we're looking at through API, how much of that can we extract into our system to perhaps, Karen, I think we came up with a goal of 50%, right? If we can pre-configure half the system in an automated way, that would be a big benefit, because as the number of shows continues to grow, given the size of our team, it takes a lot, and we want to be able to automate a lot of those things. So that's really what I want next.
As someone who sets up those salvos, I'm really looking forward to that too. So I'm setting up the salvo, and it could be up to 100 routes here locally, but like Gary said, we still have to log into the remote site, whether it's RackDaddy or San Francisco, Dublin, or any of those. I still have to log into those, and then now route that decoder to that switcher or monitor or so on. So I'm looking forward to the automation part. I'm looking forward to the global orchestration as well.
The devices have gotten so much better. The APIs are so much better than they were 15 years ago. Even our Dante embedders, we can have the ability to control those and have that part of a salvo. So.
Good morning, Jeff Longbottom with Diversified. You spoke of remote contributors coming in through your team's meetings and having to set up the mix minus and set them up as a contributor to the meeting as opposed to simply a watch. Can you elaborate a little bit on the technologies that you're using specifically for that purpose, for receiving the audio and video from that individual and embedding them into your program?
Sure. So we're using an MTR device. It's basically just a Windows NUC. Right now we've got a Magewell closed caption, a capture card. And so we'll just basically route SDI into the caption card, and then we'll embed the mix minus coming from the mixer into it. So that's how it'll get its mix minus and video. And so, like for example, if we used it for a watch party, we routed just our playback device, and then we had our playback device, we're just playing content back, and so everyone that was on the team's call just saw the playback source. But if they're a participant, we'll route an aux that Jesus will set up for me, and I'll route the aux, and I'll route the mix minus that the A1 says is available. So
I have a question. You guys touched on up-leveling employee engagement. How do you keep them coming back for more? I'd love to hear what is on top of mind. What's in the pipeline? What are you guys doing that's cool, innovative, engaging, interactive?
You want to jump on that, Karen?
Yeah, so again, we work really closely with our comms team who have a good sense of what the employees want to see. I think one big thing that we're working on is how do we continue bringing this show to all of the different offices, and that's something that we've been working on, is being able to bring this experience to all of our employees around the world. It is so special to be able to have our CEO do this show from a different office. So that's something that we're working on with the comms team, is being able to take this on the road as much as possible for this next fiscal year. The interaction piece, and it's something that we continue working on, is being able to bring in employees. If it's not that we're taking this on the road, but just how do we open this up for employees to be able to ask a question at any point during our company connect. So being able to provide the technology from all of the different offices. Right now we do have 13 offices, but I know that our communications team wants to be able to open that up to even more offices around the world. So how do we bring that in to our company connect? I know that there's other, we're working on finding ways to bring AI. Obviously, AI is a big topic, and so finding ways to incorporate AI into our company connect is something that we're working on and just trying to think through. But it is a challenge, especially when, again, we're working with a show that we're trying to templatize to be able to do it every 2 weeks. So it is a lot. Right now, a lot of the focus is on the content and how do we continue adding little surprises and little moments in the company connect, whether that is with these new hire presentations. We have 3 new hires every 2 weeks that come in and do a special talent. So it is actually looking for very talented new hires that have a very special talent, and finding ways to create or to use our production and our production chops to be able to do something special for these new hire presentations. But there are a lot of ideas that we're working on right now, working closely with our comms team and directly being asked by our CEO on how do we continue, creating this show every 2 weeks into something really special that makes the employees want to come back and watch it.
Just curious how you're reporting viewing metrics after each program. Or is it monthly, quarterly? How do you package it up?
That's an interesting call. Where is he?
As someone who's being asked to do the same thing.
Oh, there he is.
You want to take the mic on that, Chris? This is Chris Packard. He's the guy that drives all of that.
Come on, Chris.
You
I'm
didn't
coming.
expect this.
I wasn't supposed to be here today either. So the question was around impact metrics.
Viewing metrics.
Viewing metrics. So right now this is actually a longer story and journey. Let me think about how to put this. So we originally used Hive ECDN, which had a lot of great analytics, which is integrated within Viva Engage, which is former Yammer. It's Microsoft Stream under the hood. So we use those ECDN analytics. We've since sunsetted the use of it because we no longer need an ECDN because our network availability is pretty good. So we use Viva Engage analytics, which we're actually having. It's not as robust as as the Hive ECDN. But we are transitioning to Pure 5, which is owned by Microsoft now, that has their own analytics, which is good. But in terms of what we're particularly looking at is peak concurrence, how many people are watching the stream simultaneously at the highest point, as well as total uniques, and all the different offices and different areas of the world. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of engagement, but really right now we're looking to this team to bring the company connect to the different offices like Karen and Gary and Joshua, Jesus and Michael talked about, to really have that bring that virtual experience in person. And yeah, we could talk more later, but yeah, that's the
Yeah, find Chris.
Yeah.
And to add to that, really quickly on it is coming as a directive from our CEO on the importance of watching Company Connect every 2 weeks. And so hearing it from our CEO directly, I think has really brought our numbers up on the amount of employees that watch Company Connect every 2 weeks. So it is something that our communications team is working on with all the different offices, and making sure that we have these viewing parties, or we have the ability to be able to go up to a microphone from our New York office, from our Detroit office, and being able to ask our CEO Ryan a direct question. I think helps with the engagement, and having people really come in and join every 2 weeks at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I think is what also helps our numbers. It's coming directly from our CEO of the importance of watching this and staying up to date with everything that's happening at the company.
Yeah, hi, Justin from Telestream. How are you? Do you need to do translation? Are you doing in other languages? And if so, how are you managing that? And then what are you doing to store everything? And what do you do with it afterwards? Because now that you're owned by a public entity, I think that makes the challenge a little different.
Talk about the captioning, and I'll talk about the storage.
So for captioning, there are occasions based on some of the things that Karen has mentioned. So if we need to do closed caption in different languages, we use our partner EEG. So we do Lexi Live encoding, and so we can do live translations through that. So that's what we use for translation for this storage.
You were asking about storage.
Yeah, what are you doing with it after? Are you putting it up in the cloud? Do you keep it? How does that process work for you?
Yeah, there is. It is posted for VOD. So we do have an all-cloud storage system, Nasuni. So we try as much as we can. There's some gaps in some offices, but we do direct records to Nasuni. That gets brought up to cloud and made available to the post-production teams wherever. So if there's work that's going to be done by the NAMR post team that's available, if it's going to be done by an East Coast team, EMEA, or APAC, Nasuni does the distribution of all of that content. And then once the finals are done, they're placed and they're made available via our MAM, and then we do have a VOD site that the employees can go to and view if they missed the event.
I have a quick follow-up, and then I've got another person to bring the mic to. So from an archival perspective, are you guys keeping all the ISOs? Are you keeping everything? What's your retention policy, if you can speak to that? And then do you cut things down to more digestible snippets for on-demand? You touched on on-demand, so.
Yeah, I did touch on on-demand. I mean, we used to do a sizzle. That's why we have dream catchers. We had an Yeah. I'm an audio guy, and I don't know how to mic myself. And that was really pre-COVID. We hadn't really gotten back into doing those sizzles. So like in the course of the hour-plus long event, we had an op that would create the sizzle that would play out at the end and would be made available. Go to the LinkedIn page, so if people want to see kind of a summary of what went on. Often, unless there is something like a bad lower third or something like that, if there was, that would go to post, that would get fixed. and then get posted. If it was pretty clean, it's a top and tails, and it gets posted. So members of the ops team handle that, getting the files off of, if it's not on Nasuni, getting it to Nasuni so that the post team can access it and do the work.
We do create a quick, to Gary's point, we do create a recap video that we then post on our LinkedIn group page for all of employees to see and remind them to watch the replay, but we don't necessarily cut things, each individual piece of the show into digestible content. I think the goal is for the employee to watch on their own time. If they can't watch it live, is to watch the whole 1 hour programming, so we ensure that they're watching the whole show and are consuming all of the information. But we do see a pretty, and Chris could talk to this, but we do see a pretty big high intake of numbers throughout the 2-week period. So we do know that a lot of employees do go back after and watch the replay, watch the VOD after the live show.
And yes, we do ISOs so that if anything needs to get fixed in post, we have the ISOs to be able to do that. Clean feed, the normal setup. How are we on time?
So we have one more question, and then we're going to do a quick bio break for about 10-15 minutes. Be back here at our next session at 11:30.
Okay. Oh,
Hey, Gary.
Alan.
Hey, Josh. Hi, Karen. Alan with DCA. Question about, since you're doing these to these satellite offices, are you running into bandwidth problems with running these? Are you using public network or are you using private network for this?
Private network for transport. So can't talk too much about our network, but what I can say is when I was talking about RackDaddy and being uplinked into offices, the bulk of our offices are all 10 gig. And we are noted on our Biz QoS as having 5 gig of a 10 gig. So the video is J2K today, going to be JPEG XS soon. I'm looking at Chin over there. And so we try to limit to 2.5 gig from any site. Since this is kind of a home base, we don't want to exceed 5 gig on this side, so we can, and that gets us, 8x4, which is typically what we need. Receiving 8 and sending out 4. When we only really need 2, but we often send some kind of backup feeds and other feeds to the remote venue. But we have the bandwidth. In those instances, there are a few offices that are 1 gig. We have other technology that uses H.265, ultra-low latency encoding, and that's going to enable us for those offices. And all of that gets loaded into RackDaddy, so we show up at any office, we look at what the infra is. We know what the infra is before we get there. There's a lot of work we have to do up front. I'll talk about the network side just a little bit. We work directly with our GNS team. We make the request of address space, uplinks, all of that. But then we also work with them that once we've established the path, we need to be able to monitor it. And we've had, last mile circuits flap, and I'll tell you our little story at Omaha, 5 minutes before CEO was going out, it went black. And our producer at the time, Katie, she's sitting there on comms talking with our CEO, and she had to maintain the perfect face, not freak out. But we're in real-time contact with GNS. They're on call for these shows, and we were able to address it, and we went live on time. So there's a lot of monitoring and metrics and analytics and things that we deal with all in real time as these shows are getting put together and set up, rehearsal, all of that.
Thanks, Gary.
What's that?
We're gonna wrap this up.
All right.
So any last comments from anybody on the panel? And then we're gonna give folks a bio break and a quick refresh for about 15 minutes.
No, thank you. Hope that was interesting for everyone on how
Thank
we
you.
do it. But
Thank you.
Thank you.